Hi, good afternoon. I'm Dan Sweet. I'm Director of Public Relations and Communications for Helicopter Association International, and welcome to our HAI at Work webinar today. I first became aware of RAIN when I saw a magazine article about one of their smaller autonomous or remotely piloted aircraft, and it seemed about the size of a smart car dispersing water in a demonstration photo. I understand that it can carry up to 30 gallons and has a radius range of around 20 miles, 23 miles, something like that. It seemed like really interesting technology. In the last month, I've learned that they also installed a remotely commanded system into a Black Hawk helicopter, where the demonstration aircraft was in Tennessee and the flight team was actually in California, where Max and his team are today. Autonomous or remotely piloted aircraft just seemed like a really great topic for a webinar as we're just getting started in the fire season here in the Northern Hemisphere. So our presenter today is going to be Max Brody, the CEO and co-founder of RAIN, along with Ephraim Wamek, I believe. And that company is making some really innovative approaches to detection and suppression of wildfires. He has a pretty interesting work history looking through LinkedIn. That led him to where he is today, but kind of the recurring theme with his career has been advancing technology. It looked like he got started as a videographer for a hockey team in Canada, but at the same time, he helped to develop a company, started a company that did Wi-Fi, expanded Wi-Fi coverage for special events. He's worked with Skytrack, a company that's pretty well known within our vertical lift helicopter industry, developing test benches for their equipment. He's worked as the software developer for My Planet Digital and was co-founder of a company that developed video interviews for prospective college students and co-founder of another company that provides educator feedback to students that is used over in 10,000 schools globally. Today, he is CEO and one of the founders, along with Ephraim Noack, of RAIN. This company is using a variety of technology to help fight wildland fires. According to a statement provided by the company, when tackling a wildfire, firefighters want to know three things. Where is the fire? How big is it? And where is it going to be headed? And answering these questions in a timely manner is more important now than ever, as climate change gives us drier fuels, hotter temperatures, and stronger winds. And to keep the responders and communities safe, we need to know the answer to these questions faster, and then we can use that knowledge to respond more quickly so that they can prevent fires from growing out of control. To respond to more extreme fire behavior they're facing, fire agencies are adapting by building tools like the Quick Reaction Force and FIRUS, which Max will discuss today, along with RAIN's own approach to coupling advanced automatic detection with ultra-fast, rapid initial attack capabilities. There we go. For those who are new to our webinars, we do prefer that these be interactive. We want to get your questions answered. We want to make sure we do that. So we encourage you to ask questions during the webinar. Please use the question module within Zoom here. Please go ahead and chat as well if you'd like, but we do pay most attention to the question module. That's where we're going to be going back and forth. If we have questions, we might reach back out to you privately to find out if, a little bit of clarification or something like that. We do record our webinars as well. And the webinar recording should be available tomorrow at probably Monday at the latest. We'll get that posted to our YouTube channel and to our website. So now let me stop sharing and invite Max to join us for his presentation. Max, that's quite a work history. What do you do in your spare time?
Well, spare time is a little bit of a hot commodity these days, but I find that there's nothing more rewarding than bringing together the people, skills, and in the context of technology to at the intersection of building a scalable business that also has a positive impact in the world with every dollar earned. And I think that's a theme that a lot of folks in this industry share, and a value that a lot of folks in this industry share, particularly we're working with wildfire folks and fire professionals. Everyone's in this business for a personal reason. There's a history there. It's not just a job, it's a calling. So
Well, in that case, I'm going to back out of the camera and let you begin your presentation. I'm really looking forward to this one today.
Yeah, me too. And just echoing what Dan mentioned earlier, folks, I'm very happy to make this interactive. I'm hoping to reserve a significant amount of time at the end for Q&A. If we don't get to all of those questions at the end for whatever reason, we love to be engaged with the industry. We've been working on this technology and in this space since 2019, and I hope that you'll see as we get into our conversation today some of the incredible momentum that's been building over even the past few months for this type of uncrewed rapid initial attack technology applied to wildland fire. So just some context. No, this is not a fake background. I apologize for the echo. We did just recently move into our new facility here at the former Naval Air Station in Alameda in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's fantastic. We've worked with a broad suite of partners to be able to do flight testing just out behind me here. So if you are ever out in this way, please do drop a line. But with that, I'd love to get into what it is, or the backstory, our why for why we are building the technology that we are. And it really began with a single tree. As Dan mentioned, wildfire is lived experience for myself and for my co-founder and chief engineer, Ephraim Novak. Our story began in 2003 with this fire that you're looking at that ended up taking out a third of my hometown and burned, and this single tree burned for hours and hours before anybody responded. This fire ended up causing the largest mass evacuations in Canada since the Second World War. I remember nailing a soaker hose to our roof with my dad as chunks of ash rained down, and police stood at the bottom of our driveway ordering us to leave. And it's just not one of those things that you forget. And we at RAIN don't want anyone to have to feel like that again. And so we started RAIN in 2019 to stop fires before they grow out of control with uncrewed helicopters. So I want to take a step back and cast this in a broader context. Since 2003, the problem of catastrophic wildfire has become considerably worse. And this is both a symptom and a cause of climate change. Catastrophic wildfire has emitted 8 billion tons of CO2 on average globally per year. And just to put that in context, that is 18% of global fossil fuel CO2 emissions, 18%. If you put together everything that flies, all of aviation, we're talking between 2 and 3% of global fossil fuel CO2 emissions. If we look at just the 2020 wildfire season in the state of California, it undid all greenhouse gas emissions progress in California over the past 20 years. It's a vicious feedback cycle. Hotter climate, worse drought, more susceptible to wildfire ignitions, which emit more carbon. And fire agencies at all levels, local, federal, all over the world, are witnessing fire behavior that they have never seen before. And everyone is echoing the same sentiment. This is not business as usual. There are not the same boundaries we're used to, and we need to do something different. And so here's the problem. Wildfires grow exponentially, and there is a huge difference between getting to a fire in 8 minutes versus 20 minutes or 30 minutes. And this is not news to the fire professionals who are joining us today. Time is everything. Rapid initial attack has been a concept in the fire community for a long time. But getting to ignitions before they reach the inflection point makes all the difference between the next gigafire and not hearing about it at all. And this is something that we're happy is becoming so obvious that folks like the X Prize Foundation have just launched a contest in this very area. And we have seen broader recognition of using uncrewed helicopters for rapid initial attack. We expect to have a whole bunch of new minds that are tackling this problem in the near future, and that's, from our perspective, a great thing, because putting out wildfires before they're catastrophic is a win for communities, it's a win for firefighters. I mean, we haven't even talked about this, but I mean, for firefighters, we're just hoping to help make the problem tractable. We're just trying to help make the problem possible to solve. Let alone these massive million-acre fires that only a change in the weather is able to deal with today. So we're very happy to welcome new minds that are tackling this problem. It's a win for communities, win for firefighters. It's a win for the planet, and other people recognizing this is really important. So, just to add on top of that, in February, the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology released a report that has come to the same conclusion that we did when we founded RAIN in 2019, specifically to encourage development and demonstration of prototype autonomous detection, assessment, and underscore containment systems for wildland fire. And that's because these uncrewed aerial vehicles are poised to be able to dramatically increase our nation's wildfire response capacity, especially at a fire's incipient phase. And so we're very happy for broader industry recognition and emergent policy at the highest levels that are excellent validations of the work that we've been doing. So pictured here is Orange County Chief Brian Fennessy presenting a report, or presenting this President's Council report earlier this week at the Wildfire Technology Management Summit in Sacramento. Chief Fennessy is one of the leading innovators in this field, and his work on some of the predecessor concepts have helped build a broader adoption of the emerging technology that we're working on within the fire community. And so I'd like to take a few minutes, again, stepping back from what we're working on, and talk about what has come before us, what has set the stage for this type of technology. And the first is something called the Quick Reaction Force. So the Quick Reaction Force is an initiative that Chief Fennessy championed in partnership with Southern California Edison, the utility for much of the bottom half of the state of California, and it now serves Orange County, Ventura County, and Los Angeles County year-round. It's primarily composed of 3 Chinook helicopters staffed 24/7 and capable of night operations. The Quick Reaction Force, as this initiative of Chief Fennessy and other innovators within the Southern California community, established the return on investment baselines for our work to scale the ultra-fast, rapid initial attack across broader regions using automation. So just to emphasize, the Quick Reaction Force is a human-piloted initiative. There are a staff of human pilots ready to go 24 hours a day in order to get on fires super quick. So, and that's a fantastic validation and prototype of, okay, now how do we take that from a region and scale it across all of the extreme and high fire threat areas across California, the Western United States, and increasingly the American South and South and East regions, which, I mean, if you've been tracking the news, fires in Louisiana, even this past week, it's not the scale that we see in the West, but it's new for that region. So this is not just a California problem. It's not just a problem in the American West. It is a US and global problem. So the 2021 statistics for the Quick Reaction Force were prolific. Over 1,836 drops on more than 50 separate fire incidents, 2.6 million gallons, equivalent to 4.5 Olympic-sized swimming pools, with 28% dropped at night. Night operations are a fantastic opportunity to get ahead of wildland fire ignitions. It's often when the winds are calmer. And it's also a fantastic opportunity to introduce uncrewed aerial systems, where there's a gap in current capabilities, and the infrared cameras that guide the perception systems work equally well at night as they do during the day. So moving on, just a couple of, I'm sure folks in this audience appreciate a little bit of helicopter eye candy. So this is what a few of those aircraft look like on their deployments. A quick video showing one of the QRF aircraft responding to a detonation. It's a beautiful thing, that drop. But I want to take you up a level. We were obviously looking at that drop through the perspective of another aircraft, which brings us to another one of the initiatives that Chief Fennessy spearheaded in Orange County and then Southern California that is now being adopted across the state of California, which is FIRIS, or the Fire Integrated Real-Time Intelligence System, which is composed of 2 fixed-wing aircraft, one deployed in the north and one deployed in the south of the state, that brings infrared real-time intelligence to decision makers, to incident commanders on the ground, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so this system is a human-powered system. There are people on board these aircraft who are gathering intelligence and stitching together fire perimeters that then get shipped down to folks who are to fire professionals who are on the ground extremely quickly through channels that everyone can access. These fire perimeters get published onto Twitter. These fire perimeters get published into WhatsApp. And so that people who are on the ground within half an hour or an hour can get this type of intelligence to make decisions about those topics that we began the conversation with. How big is the fire? Where is the fire, and where is the fire going? So, and this is what is happening today. This began in Orange County as a pilot project that then was scaled across the state thanks to funding through the California Office of Emergency Services, and just this year is being transitioned to a Cal OES annual program at about $30 million per year program. So again, this is a fantastic precedent for the types of capabilities that are at the convergence of all of these technologies. Robotics, AI, sensors, infrared sensors like the gimbal on this aircraft being merged together with human analysts on board the aircraft to push down data to supercomputing capabilities on the ground that are then doing fire spread and prediction models. That's fantastic. This is what is working and happens today. And it's also pointing to what is to come down the road, which is the topic, and this is where we step into this picture, and where the technology that we bring to the table is stepping into this picture, which is really the convergence of these distinct technologies in sensing, in AI, in robotics, in drones, putting it all together in order to achieve what we believe is the holy grail, which is reliably getting to ignitions before they grow out of control. Looking at fire growth models and designing the technology in order to reliably get to ignitions before they grow out of control. So this is what Dan alluded to, and some of you may have seen on our website. This is Mosquito aircraft that we integrated with earlier in 2022 as part of our demonstrator efforts. It's up and flying over here in the San Francisco Bay Area. We've been doing fire target practice with it. And it's really, this is in the context of we know that working closely with fire professionals is the most important thing we can do to help accelerate bringing this technology into the real world. We cannot be out here just sitting in a vacuum, designing technology absent, any input or feedback from the fire community. Yes, this is new. Yes, it's going to bring fantastic new capabilities, but as engineers, and we cannot design technology in a vacuum. And so one of the things we are most proud of is building this technology hand in hand with fire professionals. And we are always willing and happy to listen, receive feedback, iterate, and turn it around. We're a very, very strong engineering team. We're excited to bring together people who with unique skill sets, who've previously applied, in many cases, their skills to solving problems in the defense world, to now solving these problems to support our wildfire fighters. Okay, so this is a single aircraft. A single aircraft deploying 30 gallons worth of suppressant is not going to do much. And so way back in 2019, we began RAIN by answering the question, how much retardant or suppressant more broadly delivered how quickly by how many aircraft is going to reliably contain an ignition before it grows out of control. And we call this the network control software. This same software is what we use for planning the future network of uncrewed aircraft distributed throughout high-risk regions, as it is that we use internally when testing even with a single aircraft today. And that's because where the aircraft should be located is driven by the physics of fire. It's the physics of fire growth and simulating fires across the entire high threat areas that inform exactly where those future takeoff and landing sites should be. So, of course, we cannot respond to an ignition without having really quickly identified a potential ignition, and that's a fantastically exciting area of technology as well. So, for example, early detection is a problem that we are not addressing. This is a problem that there's a ton of companies working in this space to use cameras to do wide area early detection, the lightning detection systems. There's a fantastic amount of work being done in early satellite detection. It's not quite there yet for early incipient small fires, but it's coming. And so we are very happy to partner and work with all of these early detection data sources in order to bring that into the network control software, which is always in the hands of fire agencies to dispatch an aircraft to go respond to that ignition before it reaches, that ignition reaches its inflection point. I just want to underscore, there's a ton of surface area in this problem, and we are not focused on wide area early detection systems. We're partnering and working with others in the industry in order to bring in that early detection data to allow fire chiefs to dispatch aircraft to respond to ignitions. So just to give you the 1, 2, 3 of how things work. Fire is detected, perhaps that's with an alert wildfire camera. There's already over 1,000 alert wildfire cameras installed across the state of California. You can think about these as the early fire watch or the modern fire watch towers. They're often co-located with telecommunications towers, and they are constantly feeding back imagery into software that's doing algorithmic smoke processing to identify is what I'm looking at a cloud? Am I looking at a smoke plume? Which then especially if there are multiple cameras in that region, are able to identify a region of suspected ignition. And that's not going to be like the exact latitude and longitude, but it's okay because all that's necessary is for there to be an ignition that's suspected, that then the agency having jurisdiction can push the button to dispatch the aircraft to go investigate the ignition. Once the aircraft is approaching the ignition, it's using its onboard thermal cameras and computer vision software, which is part of what we build, to localize exactly where that ignition is and then compare its expected growth based on our simulations with the real world perceived growth. And at that point, that's when the system, with the full support of the agency having jurisdiction, could dispatch additional resources to respond in parallel. So as the aircraft is responding to an ignition, it gathers a better and better and better sense of how big is that fire, where is it going, and if this is mirroring that work that Virus currently brings to the market today in California. But taking that work and now integrating it with the capacity to rapidly suppress that ignition as soon as the aircraft arrives on scene. Okay, and so third step here is obviously contain. Now I want to be very clear here, what you're looking at is a compressed air foam system delivered from an aerial platform. To our knowledge, this is the first time this has happened, or that these two platforms have been, technologies have been married. To be clear, this is for indirect suppression ahead of an advancing fire front. Obviously, with rotor wash and a foam stream like that, if you were to attempt direct suppression, it would also fan the flames. But drawing a containment line ahead of the fire's advancing front. So I'm sure there's probably going to be a ton of questions on this that we can get into later, but in the interest of time, I'll just keep going here. Ultimately, this is the vision. So taking risk, like what it looks like on the left, down to a low or green level of risk, like what you see on the right, using a network of these uncrewed aircraft that are forward deployed throughout high-risk regions, capable of responding to ignitions before they grow out of control. And I want to emphasize that this is not a scatter, throw darts at a map and figure out where these takeoff and landing sites are. These takeoff and landing sites are all designed based on the physics of fire growth, determining where they should be located in order to reliably get to an ignition before it grows out of control. The takeoff and landing sites are installed based on wildfire risk. Okay, so just to put a wrap on what we call the smaller platform, this is the Mosquito. We've taken that technology and applied it to larger platforms because we know that some of the worst fire starts are driven by high wind conditions, so operating in 30, 40, 50 plus mile per hour winds. And these type of wind conditions demand larger platforms. And so later last year, as part of demonstrating the portability of our technology across aircraft types, we have integrated with a much larger platform, the Black Hawk. And as what Dan mentioned at the opening, our team was located in our offices here in California. The Black Hawk was located over in Tennessee. And we remotely commanded the flight path of that aircraft from our offices in Alameda. So, just a few more photos of what that looked like. Now, I want to emphasize that all of this was done in partnership with others in the industry. We are building this technology as an integration kit to bring to existing aircraft and existing platforms. We want to be able to, for our fire agency customers, to be able to bring their own aircraft to us and for us to be able to upgrade them. As it relates to the broader community here, this technology is, of course, able to help in the interim between now and when it's deployed in increasing safety. You can see that here we have 2 safety pilots on board. Obviously, as when we work with larger platforms, we're not going fully uncrewed like we did with the smaller platform immediately. So to that end, I'd like to just close out with a brief video that runs through the recent test and demonstration that we did, remotely commanding the Black Hawk's flight path from our offices in California to an aircraft that's located in Tennessee. And I'll let our Chief Engineer, Efrem Novak, take it away.
Today we're demonstrating remotely commanding a UH-60 helicopter.
The ground station in California is going to send a mission to the mission computer that's inside this box, and the mission computer then processes that flight plan and writes it to the autopilot, where the autopilot can then execute that mission.
Mission Director, comms check. Copy.
Standing by for flight.
California, this is flight. I'm clear to proceed.
Report when ready for flight plan upload.
Flight is ready for flight plan.
California GCS, upload flight plan. Uploading flight plan.
Flight plan received. Flight plan is activated.
Flight report when at destination.
California, this is flight. We have reached destination.
Flight Verify when mission computer reads RTV.
I see RTV on my display.
Flight, you can prepare for landing after this.
It was incredible to work with Frank and Carrie. They're really talented pilots.
With no interaction from either of the pilots, the system had uploaded the flight plan and it was already active and ready for us to engage.
You know, the technology to be able to do that to an aircraft remotely located anywhere was an impressive feat.
Okay. Well, everyone, I promised a decent amount of time for Q&A, and I love to step into that portion of our conversation. And so happy to jump into it now.
Okay, we do have a handful of questions, Max, and a really great presentation. I just think that in the short-term future, you know, there's going to be a great way to integrate the autonomous, remotely commanded, remotely piloted aircraft with piloted aircraft. It seems like California is really kind of stepping up in that direction with their fast attack teams. And so it'll be great to watch that this summer. Hopefully California won't have much of a fire season. We'll have to wait to see your system in place, but we'll see how it goes. Can the smaller Mosquito aircraft fight fire at night or in low visibility? Are they going to be able to work in situations where piloted aircraft or may not be able to work?
That's a fantastic question. So there's nothing fundamental about the technology that prevents the aircraft from operating at night. And I want to emphasize and underscore that the technology that powers the Mosquito, it translates to larger aircraft as well. So there's nothing fundamental about the technology that's different between the Mosquito and the larger platforms like the Black Hawk that would prevent, say, the Black Hawk from operating at night as well in an uncrewed manner. The capabilities that we have demonstrated to date have not included night operations, but it's something that we're very keen to work on as we bring the technology towards commercialization.
Okay, let me switch back to the other screen that I just lost, of course, for some reason. It decided to disappear on me. Question from Mawia. How are the aircraft controlled from the ground, or are they automated? You have people, and maybe this applies to both, with the crew in California. Were any of them pilots? Were they operating with flight controls, or are these all computer programmed flight routes?
So this is something that is a very important topic in the industry, is becoming more specific about what autonomy means and what's the difference between automated and autonomy, and what is that, or what are the capabilities along that spectrum. And so there are automated components to what we have demonstrated and autonomous components to what we have demonstrated and will continue to demonstrate in the future. The trajectory or the spectrum begins with automation and moves towards autonomy. And one of our engineers really likes to talk about it this way, the difference between automated and autonomy. You imagine a football game, and please forgive me if I butcher this because I am coming from a Canadian context, but in a football game, if the coach were to go around and telling every single player, okay, turn left, turn right, block, tackle, throw the ball, there's just way too many commands that the coach would have to give, especially if you're dealing with an entire team of players. And that's similar to what automated looks like. That's a scenario where you have a ground control station and remote pilots are manipulating the flight control surfaces, or they're saying, go here, go here, go here, go here, as it progresses along that spectrum. Autonomy is more like the football coach that says, okay, we're going to run play 47B. And then everyone just knows what to do. And that is the trajectory of the industry. And that's the capabilities that we're building towards. Now, it's really important to note that that building full autonomy is not required to help bring this technology into the world and for it to start being useful and being deployed, especially when you're dealing with, say, one or two automated aircraft operating on a fire at the same time. You can have remote pilots who are making all of those decisions. But to truly write down regional wildfire risk and to respond with enough suppressant, quick enough, with enough aircraft, that is going to require more of that autonomous play-like capability where the football coach can just say, hey, we're going to run this. And the analogy to the football coach here is the incident commander on the ground at the agency having jurisdiction. We are designing all of these systems to have humans in the loop. So even when the system is autonomous, there's always going to be a person on the ground who is approving or modifying, the plan and is kept up to date with its progress.
Okay, we got kind of a specific question from Dan Parsons, who is an aviation journalist of strong reputation. Is the remotely piloted system that you're using Sikorsky's Matrix, which is similar to what they and the Army have demonstrated with Elias?
So I cannot comment specifically on the aircraft automation platforms that we are building on top of, but what I can say is that it's a very exciting time to be in this space at this time, because these aircraft automation platforms have existed and emerged and have benefited from nearly 2 decades worth of maturation. So we are not building the soup to nuts here. I mean, there's so many giants that we're able to partner with and add capacity or capabilities to. The short version is it's an exciting time to be working in a space where there are multiple aircraft automation platforms that are supporting legendary aircraft like the Black Hawk.
Fair enough. Somebody was wanting to know how many people were on the flight crew in California that were commanding the aircraft in Tennessee?
Yes. So we had 3 people who were at the stations, and then there was probably a brief clip there where you saw a bunch of us who were very intently watching everything going on all the monitors behind them.
One of our longtime webinar viewers is asking a question I think that every pilot in our industry is concerned about. How long do you foresee that pilots are no longer needed? With helicopter missions are entirely different than, say, fixed wing operations. Will there be a point where some of the computer technology can completely replace pilots?
Well, I think what you're going to see is specialization, and that's the history of technology and technology enabling humans to do greater and better things. We are designing technology to do something very, very specific, which is the ultra-fast rapid initial attack mission within the context of a broader network of aircraft. There's going to be many places where fires do not necessarily grow as quickly, where the need to get on fires fast is not as strong. And I think for a reasonable amount of time, you'll continue to see good opportunities for pilots to jump in and provide fantastic services to the wildland fire community. I say this even as we sit in a massive pilot shortage at the moment, right? There's everyone from airlines to air attack is clamoring for pilots. And within these specialized domains like aerial firefighting, you can't just, it's not just, oh, you've flown a helicopter before, okay, now you can do aerial firefighting. It's important to have a built-up degree of experience in this domain to be safe. I think if we even look at the statistics, 6 aerial firefighting fatalities in 2022, 6 aerial firefighting fatalities in 2021 in the United States, and 7 aerial firefighting fatalities in the United States in 2020. Globally, it's not just a rotorcraft. Earlier this year, 737 went down in Australia doing aerial firefighting. It's not a safe job. And when we look at the history of robotics and where robots are typically applied, I mean, we send robots to the bottom of the ocean, and we send robots to outer space. We send robots to the places where it's really dangerous for humans. And if we put a bow on all of that, for this technology and for other technology that's coming up around automation, there's going to be humans involved for the long term. There's going to be humans who are the remote pilots. There's going to be humans in the near term who are as safety pilots, as we've demonstrated just in that video. The story of automation and technology over 100+ years is enabling humans to do more and greater things and do so safely. So in the short term, and so I see that being true in the long term. And in the short term, I view this technology as just alleviating some of the back pressure on the pilot shortage.
Well, let's ask another question. It just occurred to me, watching the video where you had the pilots, safety pilots, is there a capability where your system could be almost like a hybrid, where, say, the manned crews took off initially, and then all of a sudden the incident commander or the air boss has a specific mission that he wants to? Could you guys program that in and let the aircraft take over, let the system take over, and then let the pilots take back manual control?
Yeah, I mean, we're very interested in applying this technology to support and make the role safer for pilots in the near term. That's capabilities we can introduce. I'd say the key challenge is we need to hear from decision makers within the fire agencies and government that this technology is something that folks are willing to pay for and are wanting to integrate, because as we all know, this stuff is expensive, and there needs to be significant value add in order to do that. So I'd love to talk afterwards with pilots who are interested in safety augmentation technologies that we might be able to provide and help build up that groundswell of support to decision makers.
Okay, what we might have to do there is, I have your email address. If we do get questions from pilots specifically, I might just forward those on to you, and you could respond at your convenience. Matthias has a question. How do you envision cooperation between the crewed and uncrewed aerial firefighting? So say you're on a massive project fire in California where you have manned aircraft and the remotely piloted, remotely commanded, autonomous, whatever system might be in play. How would they work together?
Yes, so before we get into this, I want to just really strongly emphasize that this technology is designed for ultra-fast, rapid initial attack. And the project fire is really the scenario that we're trying to help avoid by equipping fire agencies with this technology. Project fires are massively complex. There's dozens of aircraft. There's deployed camps. You have to bring out kitchens and restrooms and lodging for people. It's like a war zone deployment. And even with all of that, the worst fires, the million-acre fires, only a change in the weather is going to really stop those. And so we believe that there is massive, massive, massive value to addressing fires in that first earliest incipient phase, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes, that fast. And designing backwards from that to build the technology to enable that. Now that also has conveniently dramatically simplifies the airspace problem, because you're not dealing with this massive coordination yet. But that being said, suppose we're in a situation where the fire is growing out of control, and the initial response was insufficient, and now there's additional resources being pulled in. I want to always underscore that the technology is under the control of the agency having jurisdiction. And just like the air boss is coordinating flight levels and folks coming in and out of the temporary flight restriction, it's completely within their control. But that's not to say, just because it's in their control doesn't mean we have systems to help with detect and avoid. So from a technology perspective and a control perspective, it's always in the hands, the controls in the hands of the fire agencies. When it comes to the regulatory environment and the FAA, we're very proud to have worked with the FAA on some regulatory frameworks to enable this technology to be brought into service, and we'll look forward to continuing with that relationship and develop towards that, integrating this technology into the real world. NASA's doing some great stuff in this area as well with the NASA Ames Research Center.
Okay, well, it sounds like you might have just answered this question to a certain degree. At the same time, Mike was asking about detect and react to other aircraft, such as those that may or may not be equipped with ADS-B or transponders. So it sounds like you were initially trying to avoid having them up in the air together, but if there are situations where they would be deployed at the same time, your system can take care of that, can address it.
Yes, so I want to emphasize that as much as it is convenient to not have traffic in the fire area, we cannot, of course, assume that, and so there has to be a detect and avoid system that is running continuously to ensure that collisions do not happen. And from the FAA's perspective, it's the more rural areas where these operations take place are better than some of the other industry peers that are working on autonomy and, say, bringing air taxi service. Nobody wants to start with these types of problems between LAX and downtown LA. We want to start with and introducing these capabilities and solving these problems in more remote areas where population density is low, where air traffic is typically low.
A question from Herbert. Can you talk about the payload that you would carry for firefighting, which, well, obviously I think would be aircraft dependent? Things like weight, deployment methods. Are you typically using water, or are you mixing it with other chemicals, shorter long-term retardant to help fight the fires or put out the initial strikes?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so you're spot on. It is aircraft specific, and we are building technology to be aircraft agnostic. So we want to be able to work with the existing fire agencies, their existing fire fleets, to help make the transition to this technology easier. And so most of those questions are going to depend on the specific aircraft. With our smaller integration today, yes, we're using foam on board, compressed air foam system. With larger platforms like Blackhawk, we're not prioritizing anything other than water because it's an overwhelming force for the stage of fire that we're currently working with.
Okay, we have another question from an aviation journalist, Mark Huber with Aviation International News Magazine. Can you compare and contrast the size of the ground crews required to support each remotely controlled Mosquito / Blackhawk that are deployed, and using, I guess, those two platforms just as baseline examples?
Is this comparing the ground crew size
or
between
the Mosquito
those two?
And then for the Blackhawk or other typically similar sized helicopters?
Yes. So again, this is all on a roadmap towards fully uncrewed remote operations. We are not starting off by taking these aircraft and deploying them out in the middle of the forest in an uncrewed ground station. And so much of the early stages are going to look very familiar and rely on existing infrastructure and personnel at helitack bases, at the existing airports. And so when we think about the personnel on the ground that's required to support a small platform like the Mosquito versus a large platform like the Blackhawk, we think more about what the impact on maintenance will be from not flying a lot of flight hours. Because these small fires don't require a lot of flight hours, and flight hours are a key driver of maintenance, which is when we think about the folks who are required on the ground to support those operations. If you're only flying 15 minutes to a fire, 15 minutes back, we're not operating that aircraft all day, every day. So that's kind of the key direction we're thinking about, more on the ground support and personnel that are required for these stations. But again, that's like future facing. You know, when we look at the capabilities of having these aircraft in the near term, it's going to be very similar to what it is today in terms of the ground environment.
Okay, I had a question from Bob. Sounds intrigued by the possibilities of your system. Wants to know if you'll be anywhere where members of the industry or the public will be able to witness your systems, either shows or trade shows or presentations, or just out on the fire lines, I guess.
Yeah, so we're very much looking forward to more broadly sharing this technology with the world. You can consider this to be a very small foray into sharing it with some folks within the industry, what we've done so far. I am very excited about some pilot projects we've got coming up with county governments. I can't share details at this time about access, but please do know that we do want to more broadly open up and share the tech with the world. And that's, if you want to follow up, I'm happy to keep you updated on that.
Gabriel, second question. Do you foresee a point where a fire is automatically detected through any number of detection means, and it literally activates aircraft that might be pre-deployed nearby? And then he's asking about without any human interaction, almost like a SpaceX type flight.
Well, I'd suggest that there's a lot of folks who are involved with the SpaceX launches at their control centers. Yeah, they may be aspiring to get to one point one day where nobody's involved with a launch or a recovery, but for the foreseeable future, there will always be a human in the loop for remotely deploying or rapidly deploying these aircraft. Now, the key challenge is to get everything that needs to happen along that authorization chain to happen extremely quickly. And that's where technology can help augment those processes.
Okay, we've got a question from Richard. We're getting down to the end of the questions. You've apparently done a really great job with answering most everything in advance. What are some of the main features of your computer vision software? Are they able to heat map, infrared, or anything like that?
Certainly. So we focus on infrared computer vision. And the key feature that is driven by an internal requirement is to be able to process that imagery and make sense of that imagery extremely, extremely quickly. Because the consumers, the internal consumers of that imagery are navigation and suppression planning. And so we cannot have a significant delay between identifying between the infrared imagery coming in and a computer vision process determining where the fire front is, because multiple times per second, the aircraft is readjusting its navigation plan towards that fire front. Within that world, I'd say like the key thing that's difficult is doing this extremely quickly and with a sufficient accuracy that the internal consumers of navigation planning and suppression planning can use that information to make decisions.
Well, maybe along that lines, do you ever foresee a situation, this is a question from myself, where you may end up deploying, I wouldn't call it a swarm, but say 2 or 3 of your mosquitoes maybe together, where a fire initial burn is getting a little bit bigger, a little bit faster, and you could deploy multiple aircraft at the same time?
Yes, and that is a key component of the response model. And the question is, how many aircraft located where, carrying how much suppressant, are going to reliably contain an ignition within a protected region. And so that's all based on fire growth simulation. In some cases, that will be one aircraft. In some cases, that could be 5 or 6 aircraft. And the key thing is checking the simulation assumptions as the first aircraft approaches the ignition. Once that aircraft is approaching the ignition, it has much higher resolution data that can then inform whether there needs to be an aircraft deployed 2 minutes behind it, 3 minutes behind it, and 4 minutes behind it.
Okay, I think we've got a final question from Awi, and actually I think this is a great question to end with because it allows us to see other opportunities. Is your work specific just to the fire service, or do you see that there could be other applications that are exploring with some of your tech that other industry segments could benefit from? Maybe hurricane recoveries or other earthquake recoveries, other natural disasters, or other just events that might benefit from your technology?
We are very focused on wildfire at the moment, but if folks have ideas about how this technology can be applied to other segments, we're always willing to have a conversation about that. But the wildfire problem in particular, I mean, it's not just another use case of automation. You know, it's not just like, oh, you know, we're going to do, you know, oil rig resupply with autonomous helicopters, or oh, you know, in the future we're going to do medevac with autonomous helicopters. It has its own world of specific long tail problems that need to be solved in a highly technical way, and that's where our focus is now and for the foreseeable future. But you know, it's impossible to answer these the potential of opportunities without conversation. So very, very happy to have those conversations.
Okay, I did get one more final question. Are you going to win the X Prize?
We are focused on bringing this technology into the world as fast as possible, because we believe that it is essential technology to help us coexist with climate change and to help prevent these catastrophic fires from destroying entire communities. And so the X Prize is fantastic validation of the work that we've been doing since 2019, and we look forward to being involved in that world. We are nonetheless laser focused on delivering results for our early visionary adopters and customers, and bringing this technology into the real world ASAP.
Okay, Maxwell, I think that brings us close to the top of the hour. I'm going to get going through my wrap-up housekeeping slides here in just a second. But let me thank you for coming on today. I think that you provided a ton of great information to our industry, both in terms of ways that our industry can help work with your technology to, again, fight fires, to save lives, to save land, to save property, and also to help understand how it's going to integrate with the existing crewed technology and where things can go down in the future. Perhaps some of our pilots can help transition and become controllers remotely, something like that.
Lots of opportunities ahead. We are prioritize, like, we're happy to collaborate. This is a massive problem with a ton of surface area. You know, the rising tide lifts all ships. So if you see a way that we can work together, we're there.
Before I go into my housekeeping, do you want to give your website?
Absolutely. You can find us online at rain.aero, RAIN.AERO, and you know, drop us a line.
I did see that there was a contact page on that website so that people can ask questions with their contact information and you'll get back to them.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you, Max. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the time of your staff, and wish you all the greatest successes as you move forward.
Thank you, Dan. Goodbye for now.
I'm going to go ahead and get things wrapped up here. There we go. We do have webinars coming up as well as today's really interesting future technology firefighting. It sounds like it's already in place. I shouldn't really even call it future technology. I'm looking forward to seeing how it works out this summer. Upcoming topics, 2 weeks from now, May 11th, we are going to have a discussion on the new HAI SMS program. Chris Hill, our Director of Safety, will be helping lead that. We've got some new additions to our SMS programs, and we think that it is really beneficial to sit down and explain them to everyone on really how it's going to make our industry safer through some expanded SMS opportunities. On May 25th, we have Randy Sharkey of Sweet Helicopters. He is a designated pilot examiner, and he's going to talk about his pet peeves. This will be a class, if you're a pilot, this will be something that's available for wings credit through the FAA. We'll make sure that we provide that information back to the FAA. If you are not yet signed up for wings credit, recommend you going into the FAA website and signing up as soon as you can. And then when we issue the registration, you'll be able to, we'll be able to take your name and contact information and plug it into the FAA database, and you'll get your credit for it. June 6th, we have talked about this for a while. It's gotten postponed a couple times. We know that Jim Viola is supposed to be in Philadelphia, and he'll be speaking one-on-one with Leonardo's CEO, Clyde Woltman. Looking forward to hearing what Mr. Woltman has to say about a bunch of different technology that's coming up within Leonardo. Speaking to that, we'd like to share information and look at that. There's an AEW 609 right there on the cover of the most recent Rotor magazine. HAI provides information services a couple different ways. We always are happy to send out a quarterly award-winning publication. Rotor magazine has some great in-depth stories, such as on the 609 and how it's going to fit into the fleet sizes, fleet dynamics for the helicopter industry. The other thing we do is Rotor Daily. It's a daily news aggregator that we send out every business day that has 10 to 15 to 20 of the top vertical aviation stories of the day. We've gone through all the different sources to compile them. You don't have to. We'll send it to your email box every day at around noon Eastern. To subscribe to either or both, go to rotor.org/subscribe. If you are an international visitor, there is a small fee for mailing Rotor magazine. We do have digital versions of it available, and there is no cost at all for Rotor Daily. We would like to hear your feedback on our webinar today. We would like to know if you have any suggestions for other webinars. We'll be sending out a survey shortly. We do ask you to spend 5 or 10 minutes just real quickly and let us know what you thought. That said, HAI is also a membership organization. We want to know about what you think we should be doing for the industry. I just heard about one of these questions that came in the other day to president@rotor.org, so we know that people are using it. We encourage people to use that. Let Jim Viola, our president and CEO, know how we can help you, what we're doing wrong. If there's anything like that, let us know. We want to make sure that we are providing the top level of service to everybody in our industry globally, not just for the United States. That does wrap up our webinar for today. We are grateful to Max, Brody, and Rain for their presentation today on all the different possibilities for remotely piloted, remotely commanded, autonomous aircraft. It seems like it's got some great potential to integrate well with our industry as we stand right now. Until next week or until our next webinar, we ask that you fly safe, you be safe, and we will see you again very, very soon.